Cool. Hi everyone. We are starting to record the session as well. Um, so let's start with this one. Um, let me quickly again, if there's any new people on today, just my contact details. We have a WhatsApp group that I will add your details, so you can send me a WhatsApp. I'll also share this again a bit later as there are more people joining, and towards the end of the session as well. So basically today I just want us to cover the annuities and basically looking at really two types of annuities. One that is paid off or happens at the end of a month, and then late in the session, the ones that will nearly start off at the beginning of a period. So we will basically look at those two options, and I have some examples in the slides as well, but I'll also just do a quick summaries on how I will do it on the calculator as well. So once again, I think I will use the HP, but it's very similar concepts between the two or three different calculators that are available. Okay, so basically in today's session, so what I did, like in the previous times, I will show some of the concepts that will be key in this chapter. This again is basically from the things that are in your study guide, so it's nothing new. I think again, very interesting how if there will be a lot of definition questions, or if it will be more again like in previous exams, just more questions to work out. Normally they throw in one or two questions for definitions, but being online again will be very interesting if that will be possible nearly. But what I did include for you is some of the definitions that are in this chapter that you also need to know. Thanks, Bronwyn, for adding the attendance register again. I think I need to update my ones because it doesn't show that nicely every time when I post it. So please just remember to complete the attendance register. Okay, so basically what we are looking at is, and I forgot about the last one. So basically we're looking at the ordinary annuity. So that one is basically end of a month, something happens, and it builds up until the future value. The other one is that you start off at the beginning of a month, it builds up, there's not a last payment, and then there's a future value. And then the other one is basically what they call and how to pronounce it, perpetuity, is basically you have an amount that will then basically pay out a monthly amount. So that is nearly, you can think of that nearly as something to do with retirement, or and you basically have a lump sum that you invest at the end of your you get your money from your retirement fund and things like that, and now you stop working and basically you get a monthly a monthly salary from that retirement money. And that then is nearly like a perpetuity. So those are the three options. And I think very important also when you're working with a calculator, the ordinary annuity, we will do exactly like we normally would have done with like we did in chapter the previous session. When you work out with present value, future value, the only concept in this one is that it will be the payment or the monthly amount that will be included. The annuity certain due, that one on the HP, you can use the ordinary annuity certain as a function, but then you need to add the first payment, or you can um, use the begin function on the HP, and then the perpetuity, basically that one you need to use the formula for that. I haven't seen on my calculator yet how to do it. So basically you need to use the formula for that. So let's get into some of the examples. So what I've done is, and it is in your book as well, but I want to, in your study guides, but I want to nearly give you how I would have done it on my calculator. So the first thing, again, we need to make sure that just from a start that it is once times per year, or that you reset your calculator after some of the work you have done. So let's look at what they are asking us. So and another thing, I've already uploaded this on the my UNISA on the team site. So, and I'll do that from next week. I'll nearly upload it on the Monday already, so that you can get access to it, so that you can also follow on your own screens and things like that. So let's quickly look. So we need to determine the future value. So that is basically what we want to get out in the end, is we want to get to the future value. So they tell us it's an annuity after 5 payments, so we know that n is equal to 5 of 600. So there we know that is basically my monthly payment or yearly payment, but that is my payment that I'm going to do on a certain period of time. It is annually, so it is 1 time per year. Let's just add that. And they tell us it's a 10% interest. So we know that our interest rate is 10%. So basically, how I would do it is I would first say 1 time per year, just to make sure that it's not maybe one of the previous questions that I worked with. So it's 1 time per year. Then I would say, okay, it is 5n. So we know basically it's 5 periods that we work with. Then I would say, okay, let's look at the interest rate. That is 10%. What I normally do is, so if I need to get to a future value, I automatically nearly say 0 for my present value, just to make sure again that there isn't, from a previous question, there's still a present value in the memory or anything like that. So automatically I would just say a 0 for the present value. When it is for 600, that is your annuity amount, so that is the PMT amount, and then my future value. So then on my calculator, I do get that same amount on the future value. Okay, so basically in this one, not too difficult, but it is nearly a process that you need to follow. And I think that's nearly how all of these questions are. You just need to follow the process. So basically look at what your structure is of how many times it is happening. So it's happening once a year. Look at how many payments are made. So it's 5 payments. Then you look at your interest rate. Then you look at your premium that you are paying. Then for me, always I would, if I need to get the future value, I will make my present value 0. If I needed to get a present value, I would have made my future value 0. So just for to make sure that everything is correct and we run everything smoothly on the calculator. Can I quickly get a check-in? Is that also what everybody got on the calculators? Is there any questions? I think I just want to make sure that, because nearly all the rest of the first few exercises is following the same trend. And if you are using the sharp or cashier, are you also getting the same values?
John, same answers. No questions
Okay.
from my side.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Okay, awesome. So and I think that is the nice thing with, you will now see the next few questions. It's nearly following the same process. So let's quickly, I think. So once again, I'd rather work with a calculator than with a formula like that. Just to, but again, I will give you all the formulas on a list and tell you what they are needed for and things like that. But I think if you can use a calculator, please. I don't. This for me is quite an intensive process if you need to use this formula to get to the same answer. You will get to the same answer, but I just don't like going through that whole process. So let's look at, so you can see we can do it with a formula, but let's look at this one and let's quickly see if it's not easier again using the calculator. So Mrs. Dooley decides to save for her daughter's higher education, and every year from the child's first birth onwards puts away 1,200. So we already know that the PMT, we're going to say that is the minus 1,200. Again, I'm using the minus 1,200 so that in the end my future value will be a positive value. If you put in the 1,200 without the negative, all that will happen is your future value will be negative, but then you just make it positive again. So it won't have any impact on the numbers within your calculation. Okay, so then let's see if she receives 11% interest annually. So by that we know it is 1 time per year, once every year. And the amount after daughter's 18th birthday. So we basically know it is 18 periods. And the interest rate was 11%. So the interest rate is the 11%. Okay, so basically, once again, from the calculator, I would go minus 1,200 PMT. I would say 0 present value just to make sure that that is 0 again. It's 1 time a year, so it is 18 for 18 years, so it is basically 18 periods. It is 11%. So my future value I would get the 6475.12. So once again, just want to make sure, did you guys also get that? So nothing really have changed here. It's the same principle that you just apply once again. So again, for me, much easier using the calculator than trying to nearly go into that detail and remember that how you need to do it, that you first need to say 1.11 to the power of 18 minus 1, then divide by 0.11, and that amount times 1,200. So just, I think, I always try to use the calculator before I go into the nitty-gritty of this calculation. But again, I think the nice thing is it is here for us also to look at, and if you are more comfortable using that approach, it's also not a problem. Okay, let me just get thumbs up if everybody is all with us on this and happy with that one. I see a few new, not new, a few extra guys have joined. So the session is recorded, and I will also share, again, if there's anybody new on this session, some of my details later on as well. Okay, so let's go to the next one, and here I think also what is important, every time important what the question tells us. So what is the accumulated amount? So they luckily tell us we're looking for a future value. So in the end, that is what we want, is the future value. So let's see what they give us. Of an annuity with a payment of 600 Rand. So let's just basically, so we can start with a PMT is equal to minus 600. So for our calculator, 4 times per year. So remember in the previous two questions, it was once every year. So now it is 4 times a year. So I would, on my side, I would change it for the HP. I know that what you will just do, and I think, Greg, you said that the last time as well, you will just make sure that in your number of times it happens, you will incorporate that 4 times. So let's just see. They tell us it is 5 years. So 5N. So if you want to, then it is basically to say 4 times 5 to get also your number of times it will happen, which is 20. So that's just also a check to make sure. And then the other thing, the last thing we are interested in is the interest rate. So the interest rate is 13%. And also, just when we do this on the calculator, once again, I would just go back to make my present value 0 again. So 0 present value minus 600 PMT, 4 times a year for 5 years. So my total number of periods will be 20, 13% interest rate, and my future value will be 16,538.5463, which will round off to that same amount. So once again, no problem in doing it this way, but the calculator, I think it's a bit easier to do it that way. I think what is important in the formula is, and let's just quickly look at the previous one. So and let's see if the green works better, just to show something else. So because it was annual rate, it was like a given that we will use it as the 0.11 there and the 0.11. When it is in this instance, it was compounded quarterly. Remember, we need to divide by 4 if we are using the formula. So you needed to divide the interest rate by 4, so that will give you a different way of calculating. And Craig, I assume if you didn't use that, but you just set for 20, I assume you also change your interest rate in putting that into your calculator. Otherwise, I think you will get a bigger amount. Is that also how you did it with your calculator? Basically, you change also your interest rate calculation.
No, so basically I would put in the per year,
Yeah.
which is 4, and
So you will put in the 4
yeah.
per year. Okay. So if you didn't put in the 4 per year, so if you kept it as once a year, but you wanted it over a period of 20 periods, then you just need to remember when you use it that way, you need to change your interest rate as well. So if you do that, you actually will still get to the same answer. So you can actually check it if you put in 1 time per year, and now it's nearly for 20 years that you do it. If you change your interest rate by saying 0 or 13% divided by 4, you will actually still get to the same answer. So that is nearly also a way to make sure if you don't change your per year formula, that you just need to, whatever you do, then you need to do it with your interest rate as well, so that your interest rate is adapted. So that is a way of getting to that also, if you don't want to change the per year every time that you work with a question. Okay, happiness with that. Then we can maybe go on to the next one. If there are questions, we are a very small group still. I think we're about 7 or 8. Let me quickly count. Yes, we're 9 people. So please, you can, if there's a question, just unmute and ask. I don't have a problem with that, but we just have nearly a conversation as we go along as well. So anytime that you have a query, just please ask me. No problem at all. Okay, so basically one of the next ones is, so we're gonna go through this exercise again. Definitions. I really want to say that I don't even want to look at definitions. So the first few questions was that we needed to work out the future value. The next set of questions will be, we are still working with annuity, but we are working out the present value. So you will see that I just want to check where was that previous formula. So you would see when we worked out the future value, obviously that is your monthly or your annuity that you are paying, and that is the big difference between working out your future value and working out your present value. So let's quickly check here. Where was that? So look at that and look at the interest. So it's more to do with the interest actually. than with the other one. So let's go back. So look at what happened at the bottom. So what they introduced here was nearly to say it's the same as you have that. So that is the big difference, and that basically makes that you're pulling it forward to your present value. I wonder if it will be interesting to check some of your, and I'll just check some of the, if you guys can go onto the MyUnisa site later on and send me some of the previous exam papers. I just want to check for, because there's normally one or two questions in your exam that you will need to work with, nearly need to change a formula into a different way. So I just want to check if any of the previous papers have this one that you needed to change from a present value to a future value, or the other way around. So if somebody can just send me on the WhatsApp group some of the previous papers, I just want to investigate that for you, because I know there's always in your exams nearly one or two questions that you need to manipulate a given formula to get to something else. So I can't remember if there was any in your assignments yet. So if there was, you can also just let me know. But I think normally there is one or two in the exams. Okay, so that was basically the big difference in a formula point of view between future value and present value of an annuity. So the only difference nearly comes into play with how you do it on your calculator. So let's look at this question. So, and this was a very interesting one. So Max puts down 3,000 Rand on a second-hand car, and then he contracts to pay the balance in 24-month installments of 400 Rand each. So basically, it is your PMT is the minus 400. You are going to work out the present value, so your future value is actually 0. Your interest is charged at a rate of 24% per annum. Shoo, that's a lot. You can see this was done in the time when interest rates were really high, nearly like a personal loan kind of interest rate. So your interest rate is 24%. It is payable monthly, so it is 12 times per year. Because it was for 24 months, it is basically 2 years, so that you can get to those 24 periods. How much did the car originally cost? Okay, so first we are going to work out what is that present value of that installments. So basically, by putting in minus 400 PMT, putting in 24% interest rate, 12 times a year for 2 years give you the 24 monthly. We get a present value of 75, or let me quickly say what I've got on my calculator, 7565.5702. So round it off, it gives you that amount. So in the exam, that will be one of your options. But they're asking us firstly, what was the original cost? So we need to add the nearly the 3,000 rand that was a deposit. We need to add to that. So to get to your amount that he paid, so basically if you add that, we get the 10,565.57. There is no way on the calculator to incorporate that 3,000 rand. So, and also remember that 3,000 rand you can't say is a present value or future value, because it is something that you have put down and you're not getting interest on it. So it is a deposit that's just basically going into the not your bank account, or you got not getting interest on it or anything like that. So what they also in this question ask is to say, okay, but what was the interest that you actually paid? So we know that you basically had 400 rand was your monthly payment or installment. We know it was for 24 months. So if you multiply those two with one another, you would have got to 9,600. And if you add that to the 3,000, because that would have been part of your payment as well, so you would have actually paid in total 12,600, if I am doing my calculation correct. Yes, I am. So basically, in total, you would have paid 12,600. Of that 12,600, if you take away what the present value was, the rest is the interest that you have paid. So basically, you have paid over 2 years, you have paid more than 2,000 rand interest on that money, which is quite a lot. So again, this is just another way to show how to work out the present value, and I think that is important. So the difference between the present value and the future value calculation is basically that instead of I'm just quickly want to, is my screen still sharing? Because I had a flicker on my side, so I just want to make sure you can still see my screen. Yes, okay, cool, awesome. Okay, so basically this is nearly the difference between present value and future value calculation on an annuity. I think we've got another one that we can look through. Yes, so let's quickly look at this one as well, and let's just see if we can work this out before we get into the other types of annuities. So quickly determine the present value of annuity with semi-annual payments. So semi-annual actually means 2 times per year. So I think again, some of these wording and things can become, I always get confused by what does biannual mean and what does semi-annual mean. So it's, yeah, so I think again, some of these highly English words also confuses me sometimes, but it is 2 times per year. They tell us it is for 10 years. So we know it is basically 10N. So your periods, the number of periods will be 20, because it will be the 2 times with 10. Then let's quickly, so my PMT would have been the minus 800. 16%, so your interest rate would have been 16%. And you also then supposedly need to get the answer. So again, instead of just clearing everything, I would just go 0 for my future value. I will go 800 or negative 800 for my PMT. 2 times a year for 10 years, then that is 20 periods. Sorry, I had a cough there. and then my interest rate is 16%. And then if I work out my present value, it will give me 7854.5179, which rounded off will give me the 7854.52. Okay, so that is basically just again a way to get to the present value calculation. Again, if you didn't want to work with 2 times per year, if it was the original 1 time per year in your calculator, then all that I would have done is I would have said 20N, so that would have given you the 20 periods, but then you will need to divide. And so let me first, so when you need to divide the interest by 2, and you will get the same present value. I normally work with four decimals. So you will see in the exam they would normally round it or give you it in rand and cents value. So it's not like in any other subjects where it goes sometimes in the stats subjects, it goes to 3 or 4 or 5 decimals. Because it's always a rand value, it's in rand and in cents. And they won't give you 3 options that is 7854.51.52.53. So in that instance, you don't need to worry to round it off to specifically the right decimal. They are not that they give you 3 different answers that's rounded off with 1 decimal different. That will never happen. So I don't know if that answers the question or if that is more comfortable for you, but yeah, so you can, or what I normally do is I also set my calculator dependent on what I see in the exam. So if I see in the exam most of the answers is to the second decimal, I basically set up my calculator that it only shows me two decimals, but it does it already for me. But I don't now still need to think about what I need to do. Yeah, so again, you can decide, but definitely there won't be a question in these kind of questions where it's off by 1 decimal and when you're wrong. So you at least don't need to worry about that. It can even be that the answer is 7955, but they rounded it off to the nearest rand as well. And again, then they won't have 545556. That is just not how. So they would rather do it a bit different to give you other options that you could have worked with a period of 20 or 10 years on a yearly basis, and they can give you an answer. Or they could have the same question, and one of the answers was if you worked out the future value, it would be one of your answers. So there are other ways that they rather test you if you know what the concept is, and not really on I know there's other subjects that would now suddenly give you 7854.25 just to make you maybe look at it differently, but not in this subject. So in this subject, they will rather test you that you nearly understand and use the calculator correct. But saying that, what I have also seen with this subject is that then it could be that, let me quickly do this one. So where this one was, where was the one that was one time a year? So what can happen is that you get this question where it is twice a year, and then your next question is annually, and you forget to change your twice a year to once a year kind of setup. And I know from even from last semester in one of the assignments, it was like that. But you actually then have one of the answers is where you nearly worked with some of the previous information and didn't reset your calculator. So I think that is nearly very important for the exam as well, is if it's not two questions that's connected, nearly remember that you need to make sure that the input that you put into your calculator is new and fresh, and that you don't. So if I don't say anything about the 1 time per year or 12 times per year, that you nearly don't, because you're not changing it, that it's still in the memory, the previous question. Okay, so let's go to another set of annuities. So quick check-in, everybody okay up until this point? And Shahida, I hope I did answer your question there in a long way. Okay, cool. So let's look at the next one. So annuities due. So let's quickly check, and this now is an interesting one. So there's two ways of doing it. So the one way is, so let's do it with the one way first, and then I'll change it up a bit on my calculator, and I hope you also have the begin function on some of your calculators. So let's do it the way that they did it first, and then we can do it the other way. Okay, so nearly like all of the previous questions. So the one thing we now need to remember is, and again, why timelines are so important. In your previous questions, there was no payment in that first one, but all the rest happened. Here, there is, where are we now? There are a payment in the first one, but not in the last one. So let's quickly look at this formula. So we need to calculate present value of an annuity due with quarterly payments of 500 at the interest rate of 16%. Okay, so PMT is equal to minus 500. Because it is an annuity due, we always have one less period that we are working with. So when I looked at this, so it was compounded quarterly. So basically it is 4 times per year. it is for 6 years. So your N is 6, but we basically, so that is your 24 quarters, but you are not working this out for 24 quarters. So when you in your calculator, it actually only must be 23 free periods if you are working with this function. It will be your 16%. And what else are there still? So that is it. And then we will get a present value. So let's quickly see if on the calculator how I would have done that in the normal way. So I would have said again the minus 500 PMT, always with 0 future value, just so that it erases what was in there. It is 4 times a year. See, now we need to nearly, before we put in 6 times a year, we now nearly need to make a calculation to say, to get to the 23 months. So that is for one thing that is difficult if we do it this way, because you now nearly need to work it out. So I would, if I use it this way, I would have gone the other way around to say, okay, I'm doing it 1 time per year for 23 periods, and then I must just remember that I need to divide that by 4 as well. So I would have rather done it that way, so that I say 1 time per year for 23 periods, so that will give me the 23 periods. My interest rate will be 16 divided by 4, so it's 4%. It is minus 500 PMT, 0 future value. So my present value would be 7428.42. So 7428.42. And then I need to remember to add the extra 500, because it is the annuity due. And that would have given me the 7928.42. Okay, so that is the one way of doing it. I would not do it that way. So again, on your calculator, and I assume all the calculators have this function. So there's a begin function. So the begin function basically is set up that it will nearly look at that 500 payment on its own. So let's do that. So let's, on the HP, I need to say second function begin to get into that function. Then it's basically the same principle. It will be the minus 500 PMT. Then I would go the old method of 4 times per year for 6 years, which give me the 24 periods. It is 16% interest, 0 future value, and then my present value automatically gives me the 7928.42. Okay, so that is, we can use the begin function because it is an annuity due. Greg, is your calculator, I assume, also has the begin function, but is it also second function begin or something like that you need to press?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, cool. So I think the calculators are very much aligned in this principle of how to do it. again, very important is that you need to, I know on the HP, I now need to, when it's not the begin, I just can't switch it on and off. I need to again say second function begin to cancel it out. Just so that you don't, if there's other questions again following up on this, that you again don't work with a begin function. Because again, it can be that in the exam, one of your questions is begin, you work with the begin function, and it's only for that one question, and then suddenly the next question is not begin, you haven't nearly reset your calculator, and there will be an answer for you. So I think that is more nearly the tips I want to give you guys, is nearly to say after each question nearly reset, or just if it's very specific things that you only need to nearly use for one or two questions. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So I already set here the begin function, but let's look also for some of the wording in here. So yeah, it was pretty much annuity due, so that is what we are used to. In this one, the other way to look at it is at the beginning of each year. So that basically also tells us that it is an annuity due. So just again, some of the terminology that nearly can guide you in the assignments and in the questions to get to how you need to phrase or get to the question. So let's look at the rate. So John creates a fund for his son's university education. At the beginning of each year, he deposits 3,000. So the minus 3,000 will be your PMT. So let's put that in while we are talking. That earns 10% per year. So I can already put in 10% as your interest. So let's see what else. Determine the balance in the fund at the end of year 12. So basically, they want to know after 12 years, what is the amount that is in the fund. So let's just say again, one time per year for 12 years. So there is basically 12 periods. The interest was 10 minus 300 PMT. So is this a present value or future value? So you want to know what is the balance in the fund at the end of the period. So that again tells you that we are looking at the future value. So let's quickly zero present value. So future value that I worked out is when the 7568.14. Which is the same as this calculation. I think once again it's nearly important to use the begin function. If you don't use the begin function, the value I think will be it won't be that far off. So let me quickly, this one was actually because the 3,000 is quite a big amount. So if I didn't use the begin function, the value would have been 64,152. So it just shows the big amount that the interest does as well. So once again, in the exam or even in your assignments, if it is the begin function that you need to use, there is probably an answer for you if you also didn't use that function. We are actually running through this very quickly today. So is there, up until this point, any questions? And maybe we'll look at one or two of the assignment. I don't have it with me, so maybe somebody can share that the assignment. So let's quickly finish this off, and then we can quickly check if there's one or two things from an assignment point of view that we can look at. So so let's look at the last one, and how you pronounce it. I always have a problem with that. So perpetuities, it's so basically what it tells is that you will get an amount paid out on a continuous basis. So there's again ways that they can ask it. So the easiest one how they can ask it is to say that basically you need to, I think in one of the assignments was, I hope there was something like that or you have this big amount, what is your monthly income going to be? So you basically just need to say that big amount divided by the interest to get the monthly amount. So that can be it. The other way is also that you can see here is, and we will go through this question now because this is a bit different, and it's not, we're going to check if we can use the calculator as well with this one. But so let's look at this question, because this is not just a straight, it's nearly a combination of the questions. I don't think there is one. I will check for you for a question on this, and maybe there is one out of the assignments, but that is more basically, you've got this big amount, and as like I said at the beginning, so of a session, it's nearly to say, while you're working, you're building up your retirement fund. At the end of your 60 years, you basically get that lump sum of money, and you will now invest that lump sum of money, and the company will pay out for you a monthly income to live off. So that is nearly a perpetuity, is basically that lump sum of money. They will make a calculation around that to say, well, until you basically die, we will give you this monthly premium. So that is how that normally works. So the last one is this one, and then this is nearly a combination of a few things. So let's look at what are. So according to agreement with his creditors, Ivan makes payments of 1,200 into an account at the end of every second month or every 2-month period for 5 years. Okay. Determine the accumulated value of these payments if interest is compounded quarterly. Okay, so now we are dealing here with two different time periods. So that is why they introduced this formula here. So let's look at what they actually did. So let's quickly, Ivan makes payment of into account. So that is 1,200. The end of every 2 months for 5 years. Okay, and the payments compounded quarterly. Okay, so basically, we know that how many times are there. So it is 5 years for 4 quarters. So that is the 5 times 4 will give you the 20. I will check for you where this formula is. If it is part of, I haven't seen that formula in the, so I'll just check for you also where to get that formula. So basically what the formula says, and here we have it up here, but I just want to check where it is also that we get the link together. So you divide by what they told us, how many he deposited every second month. So with that formula, it's basically 20 times 19 divided by 2. So the 20 times 19 divided by 2 will give you 190. Okay. So let's see what else we need to do. It feels to me as a bit of a question missing. According to agreement. So that is the 1,200 over 20 payments. So that is fine. I'm just now wondering, where did we get the 200? There must be something missing here. Let me quickly go. Or am I reading it? Either makes payment of 1,000 into account everything. To accumulate of this payment if interest account at the end. Okay, so I just want to see where did the 200 come from. So that, let's quickly go to the study guide, because I think there is a piece of that question missing. How we got the 200.
John?
If you all agree with me, yes.
So that Q represents an increase of 200 Rand. So normally they would say he pays an extra 200 Rand every month. But I mean, it doesn't
See,
say
so
that in the question.
that's what I'm now also. So so in the study guide, doesn't it say it with 200? Huh. I just want to quickly, so let me keep this open. I just quickly want to go to the study guide and see, because that is normally what that means, is that you make an extra. Let me quickly, I have it with me, so let me quickly just check where is my folder. So while I'm looking for it, I'll just, because I just assumed I'm now copied it wrong out of the study guide, which could be quite possible. It's chapter 4. Let's quickly. I just also want to, as I'm now going through this, just want to add a slide in here that we just want to show you that. Okay, so let's quickly, okay, that makes a difference. So let's do that. And that is where the difference came in. Okay. Oh, wait, let's just add a new slide. Okay, cool. You guys can still see this. I hope. Can you still see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so obviously the previous one wasn't there in totality. That's why it felt a bit weird. So let's look at this one rather, and let's just quickly work through it. So, and I think that is the important one, is that formula. Did you maybe try this with your calculator as well to see if you can do it, or must you do it in a few steps? I think you need to do it in a few steps probably. There's not a single way of doing it. So let's quickly look at it, and then I'll just show what are the parts in this one. So you take out an endowment policy that stipulates that the first payment of 1,200 is due in 1 year, and thereafter the payment increased by 200 rand each of the year. Okay, so that is where the extra 200 rand come in. So I think what is important here is, so with this increasing annuity, this is how the formula looks like for the increasing annuity. So basically, that is your 1,200. This will nearly look at that extra 200 rand that you are adding. The reason why we are nearly dividing it with the interest rate is because you are working then again with that interest rate to make it a cumulative or compounding interest. And then you basically need to deduct that portion that you are including in this. So that is why for the 20 periods, the 200 rand and the interest rate component, you will take off again. Okay, so, and that is then your expected future value. So let's quickly check. I want to get to that answer with a calculator. This one we can calculate by that formula. Unless there is a way to do that within your calculations, but I will also check that during the night. So let's quickly do that. I think I just need to take off the begin function. So let's look at, so I'm testing this. I haven't tested it before this session. 1,200 PMT. That is quite interesting. So it's not 1,200 PMT. So let's just say it is 200 divided by 1.4. 1,515 plus the 1,200, and that will be your PMT. So let me just quickly check if I get the same answer before I now continue and talking with this. Okay, and it is, the period is for 20 years. Okay, cool. Okay, so basically how we would do it with a calculator is that will be your PMT. So basically it is the 200, which is the increasing component, divided by the interest of the 0.15. That will give you 1,333 Rand. Add the 1,200 to that, so your PMT will be the minus 2533.33. And so that is your PMT. Basically, you have it one time per year, because they tell us it is annually, I think. The expected interest rate per year is that. So it's one time per year for 20 years. So you know basically that it is for 20 periods. So just as I normally would, I will just make it one time per year, 20N, and then obviously it will be 20 periods. The interest rate of 15%. By asking future value, so just remember 0 present value, and then your future value is 259.523 or 523.74. So I do get that value, and then I need to remember that I just need to take off that number there. So that is the 200 increase times 20 divided by 0.15, so that would have been 26,666.67. If I basically subtract the 2, I will get to the 232,857.07. The reason why we are subtracting that portion, and I think that is important, so we increase it with 200 Rand, but we haven't increased it from the start. So what this formula is doing, it is making the assumption that your 200 Rand that you are increasing it with have actually started from the beginning. So what you are doing here is you are adding the compound interest on that 200 for 20 years. So to get to the right value, you need to subtract basically that extra compounded interest that you worked out or that you added to your equation. So that is why we are basically taking that part off, because from the start you didn't have that extra 200 Rand. But your whole formula that you nearly used made the assumption that you had that extra 200 Rand. So what is fascinating actually is if you started off with 1,400, that would have been the extra money over 200 period, over 20-year period that you would have gained just because of a compounded interest, which is actually fascinating, which is actually a huge amount if you put it in those terms. Okay, so that is nearly why we take off that bit of a calculation. I quickly want to also we've got another 15 minutes, so I think Bronwyn also again just added the attendance register link, so if you can just complete that for me, please. So where we were looking at the perpetuities, this is the formula for that, and I think that is also important. So a straightforward formula, and there's no catch in here. It is basically they can ask it in one or two ways. So they can ask you, or they can give you the R and the I to work out the p-value, which is, or they can do it the other way around to say they give you the p. So if it was in a retirement environment, they could have told you, so we have this example, so let's do another one. So they could have told you, you gotten 1.2 million for your retirement. And they could have said to you, okay, that 1.2 million with a interest rate of, let's use the 12.5%. So that was your interest rate. So what will be your, and in this instance, let's say your monthly return or your monthly income. So then it would be just the 1.2 million. So that is would be equal to R over the I component. So remember, to get rid of the I on this side, we basically multiply by I on both sides. So it will be the 0.125 times the 1.2 million. So what happens here is the i's will cancel out, so that will be your R. So basically that is the other way they can ask it, is by telling, or the third option obviously is that they give you the P and the R and you need to work out what the interest is. But this one, straightforward formula. The thing that can be of difference is if the interest rate is per year or per month or per quarter, then you just need to make sure that if it is per month, that it is 0.125 divided by 12. If it is per quarter, that it's divided by 4, and so forth. But this is basically how that formula would look like. So, and this one is also, I haven't seen it on the calculator yet. So this one is unfortunately one that you will need to know. I will write it up and add it to our list of equations. And this one is the other one, in a sense, that you will need to know as well, unless I can play around with some of the functions and see if there is something on your calculator. Okay, and that is basically the end of chapter 2. So just for a quick recap, so next time we will go into the sinking funds and amortization. So it becomes a bit more tricky. And then if you are not on the WhatsApp group yet, please send me a WhatsApp later on. You can take a pic of this. It is on the My Teams page as well, already loaded. But send me a WhatsApp that I can add you to our group, and we can assist in that with assignment questions and things like that. quickly, guys, any questions on your side? While we still have about 10 minutes, is this nearly assisting you in getting to understand the work? Are we doing it at the right pace? I know it's not aligned to your due dates on your assignments, but for me it's nearly more to get you that we will be aligned towards the end, that when you get to the exam that you will be ready for that. So I don't really want to just look at assignment questions and then don't have a context for you guys to not build up. But tell me if this is not working, send me a WhatsApp, or you can tell me now as well. And if it is working, also tell me if you're happy with that. So anything on your side, and also when is your next assignment due? Yeah, it was supposed to be available already. I think they said, okay, did they say 18 September? I thought it was 15 September that they said it. So, okay, so 18 is on Friday. So let's hope. I know that it, what was your previous exam date? I think it was early November, even maybe October. Was the exam date already for you? And anybody, you can unmute if there was. I just know that definitely the exam dates are, it's not your previous dates. So yes.
Hi, John. Our previous
Hi.
date was the 20th of November.
Okay, so that maybe can still be relevant, but I think as they are relooking nearly the whole exam, it can still move out. From last year or last semester, I know that DSC1630 also moved by a week or week and a half. But yeah, I think, I thought it was supposed to be out after this weekend, but if you say 18 September, so hopefully by Friday we would know. But I do assume it will move out unless they move all the other subjects out. But I can't see that in a planning process. It nearly feels like they will just shift the whole exam program out by a week or two, because to redo the whole exam is quite a mission. So what also happened, but you guys would know from last semester as well. So some of the subjects, they made that you could write longer, or that you split into groups for some of the bigger subjects. But I don't think DSC is a lot like that. But with the DSC also, it is what last semester was like. It is nearly a downloadable exam paper, and then I think on the online portal, you basically just select your options A, B, C, or D, or 1, 2, 3, or 4. So yeah. Any more questions or suggestions going forward? And is this nearly the right way for you to? I know I think your assignment. How many assignments do you guys have? 3 or 4? So it's also nearly like we are, okay, 4. So we're nearly behind 1 or 2 chapters nearly the whole time with this, which is not ideal. but we will be getting there. And I think the more difficult work is now only starting. Okay, so it is good that it is when great revision and nearly maybe some of your first 2 assignments that you've done, maybe it's like, oh, that is what I should have done, but that's also fine. I think we just need to get that you understand it by the exam, because that's the most important part. So, okay. Anything else from your side? Otherwise, we call it a day. For the guys that did join in a bit later, it is recorded, so it will be loaded. I think in the next 24 hours, it will be available on the link again into the Teams or the MyUnisa. So, June, do you want? Yeah.
Is it confirmed that the exams will be online or venue based?
I think it's in a sense confirmed that it will be online. I know from one of the subjects that I tutor in as well, in the stats side, has already been communicated to us that it is again online. I don't think the changes, if we go into level 1 with maybe what is being said tonight, will change the setup from venue based to that it will go back to venue based. I think for this year, and that's why they're also nearly changing the exam, is to make it nearly the online facility. But I think we'll know by when the exam nearly the dates are out, they would communicate. But I've seen a few communications around that it is actually online. So I don't know if you guys, any of you have seen it. I will just check. I know I've got one from on the UNISA Twitter feed that also said it was online, but I will just check again through all my posts to see if there is anything, just to confirm that. But nearly in 2 of the subjects, I got confirmation from some of the lecturers that it is online.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, yeah, which makes it, I think if it's online, it gives us a great opportunity to use the other tools, the online tools also. In this subject, not as much as some of the other subjects, because this is basically nearly your calculator will be the tool that you can use. I know in stats and DSC1630, it was very nice to use some of the online tools. But here nearly your calculator can do a lot of the things for you. But if there is, as we go along and there's other tips, I'll share. So even if it is that you have if you have a laptop or anything like that you can maybe use Excel for certain things as well, I will show you some of those calculations as well as we go along. So just that you have a few more options available. Okay. Anything else from you guys? Otherwise, we call it a night, and I'll see you again next week, just before the planned long weekend.
Thanks, John. Goodbye, everyone.
Oh, no. So wait. Are we having a session next week? Okay, so let's quickly check. I'll just check if the schedule is still as is, but I think with a long weekend probably. So I'll just, when is the public holiday? The Thursday. So that's probably why we haven't scheduled something for next week. I'll just make 100% sure and let you know as well what is happening. If we have something next week, else it is only the week after. But I will keep you updated, and you will. Did all of you get the MS Teams invite or the calendar invite and things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Mine. Mhm.
Okay, cool. So we'll see later tonight when is the next one. Then I'll just update the schedule again. I had it that it was next week, but I think maybe not, because probably people are already taking leave Wednesday. So I'll just keep you updated. So I will let you know. Cool. Have a good evening, everyone. And if you're not on the WhatsApp group yet, please let me know and I'll add you. Okay, let me just stop the recording as well, and then have a good evening.